You're looking at a sealed government room. No doors, no windows, no way in or out. But at exactly 3:14 a.m., a man appeared on camera. No one saw him enter. No one saw him leave. And 8 minutes later, he was gone. This isn't a ghost story. It's a security nightmare that still has federal agencies scrambling for answers. Because what they found carved into the wall afterward wasn't just a message, it was a warning. And it wasn't the first time this happened. You're watching a security feed from a room that shouldn't exist. No doors, no windows, no entry point at all. Just 4 steel walls, 12 feet by 12 feet, polished concrete floor, a recessed light in the ceiling, and a single ventilation duct, sealed from the inside with welded mesh. The room has no designation, but internally it's known as Room 7. It's located deep beneath a decommissioned Cold War bunker in Nevada. The facility above it was once used for nuclear test monitoring, then later by DARPA for classified neural interface research. It was eventually shut down in 1997 and left off official maps. Room 7, however, was never on any map to begin with, because Room 7 was part of something else. Something no agency ever publicly acknowledged. Surveillance on Room 7 ran 24/7. Infrared, biometric, ultrasonic, everything. But the feed was mostly uneventful. The room was always empty, always still. Until March 19, 2013, at exactly 3:14 a.m., when everything changed. It starts with a static pulse. Just one frame. A glitch. Normal in older systems, except this wasn't old. It was running a military-grade adaptive encoding suite, meaning it doesn't glitch unless something interferes. After that frame, after just one burst of digital snow, a man is suddenly standing in the center of Room 7. Wearing dark clothing, boots, no visible ID, and what looks like a military field pack slung low across his back. No entry, no movement. 1 second empty. The next, he's there. But it gets weirder. He doesn't look confused or disoriented. He looks like he expected this. Like he knows where he is. And he's waiting for something. Over the next 7 minutes and 36 seconds, the man does not move. Not a twitch. Just stands there, eyes fixed on the far wall like he's reading something no one else can see. Then, at 3:21 a.m., he blinks, turns slightly toward the ceiling camera, and smiles. Not wide, just enough to register. Then he vanishes. Like, gone. Instant. No transition. The light flickers again. And he's not there anymore. When technicians reviewed the infrared feed, it didn't help. The sensors showed no thermal signature before his appearance. And more chilling, no thermal decay after he vanished. Like his body heat didn't dissipate. Like it was never there. Analysts reviewed everything, motion sensors, vibration logs, electromagnetic patterns, and came back with the same answer. No physical breach. No measurable energy spike. No evidence of displacement. Just a gap. One that physics can't explain. At first, they thought it was a deepfake. Someone hacked the feed. Until they found what was scratched into the wall where he had been staring. 4 letters. Just 4. CAIN. Not carved with a tool, not drawn in marker. Scratched, as if by fingernail, down to the paint. Except the man's hands? In the footage, they never move. There was no time for him to etch anything. Not without being seen. That's when the panic started. Because that name? Kane. It wasn't just symbolic. Kane was the code name of a black-budget project from the late 80s, rumored to involve temporal compression and non-local entanglement fields. In simple terms, experiments with time. It was shut down, or so they thought, after a catastrophic failure at a test facility in Bellwood, Pennsylvania, in 1989. Official story, electrical fire. No survivors. But a classified memo retrieved years later in FOIA leaks said something different. It said, containment breach. Operator displaced. Status, lost to system drift. That operator's name? Captain Daniel Kane. Former Army engineer. Declared dead in 1989. Same build. Same face. And the man in room 7? Facial recognition scored a 94% match. At first, no one at the facility believed it. They thought the Kane match was a software error, a ghost in the system. But then the original Kane file was reopened. And inside, buried in a sealed annex only accessible to clearance level 9 or above, was something else. A transmission, dated July 6, 1989. It was exactly 37 seconds long. It came through an unshielded channel 3 days after the Bellwood incident. The signal was faint, warped, but inside it, a voice. And the words it spoke didn't make any sense at the time. It said, "Time holds memory. Memory resists correction. I am the anomaly." That recording had been labeled a hoax, a prank by someone in the data team. Until now, because the man in room 7 didn't just look like Kane. The audio profile, after signal correction, matched Kane's voice with 98.7% certainty. But here's where it gets even stranger. The room 7 footage showed Kane staring at the wall. Not randomly, intently. They brought in a spectral analysis team to study the scratched-in letters. And they found something else. Faint etchings in the paint, invisible to the naked eye. Not writing. Coordinates. Grid coordinates. For a different site. One that had been decommissioned since 2003. A failed subterranean test center in Greenland, known in classified documents as Site 12 Aurora. 3 days later, a Black Ops team was flown in. They entered Site 12 through the permafrost tunnel. No one had been inside for nearly 20 years. But what they found didn't match the logs. The power system was still warm, and the mainframe showed logs dating back only 4 days. Someone had accessed it. Recently, they checked the access point. It wasn't physical. It was remote, but not over satellite. Not through fiber. The signal had originated from nowhere. No origin traceable. Just a quantum pulse. And inside the mainframe, a folder. One file. No extension. Just a title, Kane_protocol. When decrypted, it revealed a command string designed to interact with an unknown device architecture. But the weirdest part was the language it was written in. Not binary, not C or Python, but something new, something adaptive. The strings re-encoded themselves based on observer input. In other words, the file was watching them read it. And the more they studied it, the more the code shifted. It was alive. That's when one of the team members, Dr. Riley, collapsed. She screamed something that made no sense at the time. "I saw myself. I was drowning in my own eyes." They medevaced her to a secure psychiatric unit. 2 days later, she bit through her own tongue and coded the words Room 7 on the wall in her blood. No one could explain it, until another researcher noticed a peculiar detail. The Kane protocol wasn't random. It was recursive. Every variable, every loop, it all spiraled toward a fixed endpoint. A location, Room 7, which meant Room 7 wasn't the anomaly. It was the destination. And Kane hadn't been lost. He had been sent. But sent by what? Or worse, by who? The investigation was quietly reclassified. No longer a matter of security breach, but of existential threat. A term appeared in the report headers. One not used since the Cold War, ontological containment breach. It meant reality had been bent, or worse, rewritten. Room 7 was sealed, lead-lined, but every 72 hours, the motion sensors would trigger. A figure, just barely visible, would appear at the far wall. Not walking, just manifesting, like an echo caught between frames, and always facing the same direction, toward the camera, toward us. They tried removing the sensors. The phenomenon didn't stop. They tried flooding the room with light. The figure only got darker. They tried shutting the feed off. The footage still updated, as if something else was filming. But the most terrifying detail came from a former engineer named Ellison Trent. He had worked on Room 7 back when it was first built, as a storage unit for biological samples. But in 1992, the room had been quietly repurposed. Not for storage, For containment. Trent claimed he had signed an NDA that forbade him from even speaking the room's number aloud. But he broke that silence after seeing the Kane footage. And what he said changed everything. He said the room wasn't just designed to hold anomalies. It was designed to create them. The architecture was deliberate, 7.4 meters cubed, a Fibonacci-based cube. The paint embedded with electromagnetic reactive particles. The floor plate resting over a Faraday-laced subchamber. Trent didn't understand the full blueprint, but he remembered the code name used for the project. Mirror Engine. A technology designed not to look into other realities, but to pull from them. And Kane, he believed, wasn't a ghost. He was a reflection of something they tried to erase, but failed. Meanwhile, Site 12's decrypted logs revealed something else. Embedded within the Kane protocol was a time vector, not a timestamp, a countdown, and the 0 point aligned perfectly with the moment Kane vanished in 1989. In other words, Kane didn't disappear. He jumped. Through the mirror. Through the algorithm. Through room 7. And the scratches on the wall? They weren't random. They weren't coordinates. They were instructions. For someone else. For another Kane. A recursive loop. A man sent into a room that feeds on its own paradox. But why? What was the purpose? And then, in the most classified corner of the debrief, one word appeared. One hypothesis. Bootstrapping. They weren't containing Kane. They were generating him. Over and over. Until the version that emerged could escape. Could survive. Could adapt. And now, according to the logs, that version has. Because after the last sighting of the Kane figure in room 7, a second anomaly occurred. A ping. Not inside the facility, but in Brooklyn, New York. A man with no ID, no bank record, no social trace, walked into a corner store. He looked confused. He asked for the date. Then said, very softly, "This isn't the same loop." Surveillance footage shows him walking into the street. And then vanishing. Not literally. Just no more footage. No trace. As if reality had already begun to erase the breadcrumb trail. But the store clerk remembered his eyes. She said, he looked like he was seeing behind things. Like he could see how the world was glued together. And now, room 7 is empty. Silent. But when you stand just outside the door, if you listen hard enough, sometimes you'll hear tapping. Just 3 knocks. Repeating. In Morse. Decoded. It says, still here. They thought room 7 was an isolated anomaly. A glitch buried inside one government facility. But 2 weeks after the final Kane echo vanished, a noise analyst from the British Ministry of Defence came forward. He had heard something. Not from room 7, but from room 5C at RAF Menwith Hill, a Cold War signals intelligence base. The analyst, a man named Leonard Hatch, claimed his team was reviewing old frequency logs from defunct satellites when they found a repeating signal embedded in the noise floor. It wasn't natural. It was structured. And worse, it was familiar. When Hatch compared it to a known sample from room 7's final transmission in 1989, the waveform wasn't just similar, it was identical. Embedded in noise from space, halfway across the planet, was the exact same pulse from Kane's final moment in the sealed chamber. The odds? Statistically impossible. The implication? Terrifying. Room 7 didn't just contain Kane. It broadcasted him. Now here's where it gets worse. A month after Hatch's discovery, a civilian ocean mapping vessel called the Harbinger Deep recorded an undersea sonar anomaly off the coast of Norway. 4,200 meters below the surface, a perfectly square formation appeared on sonar, 7 meters by 7 meters. Same ratio, same angles. But what chilled the technicians was what happened to their instruments. For 7 minutes, their compasses spun. GPS glitched. Crew members reported hearing a low hum. And inside the lab, all the clocks reset to 3:14 a.m. The same time Kane appeared. The event was dismissed publicly as magnetometer interference. But in private logs, leaked by an anonymous whistleblower, the site was labeled probable convergence node. Which meant there might be more than one room 7. That it wasn't the room itself, but the event. And these rooms could happen anywhere, at any time. And someone, or something, was opening them. Which brings us to Kyoto, Japan. 2024. A neuroscience lab conducting early brain-computer interface trials reported a sudden blackout during a sleep state experiment. One subject, wearing a dream mapping headset, began speaking in fluent Aramaic, a language he had never learned. When translated, the transcript read, "The room exists where thought collapses into form." The lead scientist, Dr. Hitomi Karasawa, said it felt less like a dream and more like receiving a signal. When investigators reviewed EEG telemetry, they found rhythmic spikes, 3 knocks, repeating, then a plateau, then nothing. Karasawa shut down the program, but the footage leaked, and what it showed was deeply unsettling. For exactly 8 minutes, the subject's brainwaves matched the EM trace from Kane's original Room 7 appearance. His brain wasn't dreaming, it was matching a pattern. And if that's true, then Room 7 isn't just a physical location. It's a neural frequency, a blueprint, something you can tune into, if the conditions are right. And that leads to the final connection, one that ties everything together. In June 2025, NASA released footage from the Artemis 4 moon probe, an infrared scan of Shackleton crater near the lunar South Pole. Buried beneath ice, the scan revealed a symmetrical cavity, cube-shaped, 7 meters on each side. At the center, a thermal anomaly, a heat signature, not from machinery, from movement. But the scariest part wasn't what they found. It was the final image. The probe caught one frame before it lost signal. A reflection. On the ice. Human. Standing alone. No suit. No helmet. Just watching. When the engineers enhanced the frame, they found 2 details that should not exist. First, the figure's hand was raised. 3 fingers extended. Then a pause. Then a knock. Second, scratched into the wall behind him, barely visible in the light, were 3 words. Still here too. And that's when it hit them. Kane didn't escape the room. He is the room. Or maybe he's the signal. Maybe he's the byproduct of a loop trying to fix itself. Or worse, maybe he's the installer. Because last week, researchers at CERN discovered a sudden burst of tachyon-like data during a quantum field collision. The burst contained structured noise, audio buried in the background radiation. When converted, it translated into a voice. Male. Clear. Calm. It said, every closed room must open eventually. And then, it was gone. So next time you walk past a room with no windows, no obvious door, listen. If you hear 3 knocks, don't answer. Because it might not want out. It might already be inside. If this story shocked you, subscribe for more true crime stories that sound unbelievable but are 100% true.